I'm Lieutenant NG Senthil Nathan, the lead pilot for search and rescue drone for Malaysia's Civil Defence Force. I'm in service for the past 17 years now. Thank you.
And hence we have used the drone for flood disasters in Malaysia, especially in Penang, and also for forest fire for surveillance purposes. And the main purpose of we acquired the drone was actually to deploy in terms of in any emergency that has a risk for the rescuers on ground, so that we can actually deploy our rescue assets such as trauma bags or even what you call the buoy for floating to be deployed by airdrop. So our drone has the ability to actually carry the equipments, rescue equipments, and also it has skylight facility where it can light up to 10,000 lumens at night for at least for half an hour in any dark search and rescue area. Mm-hmm. And we also have 10 times zoom camera, which can actually zoom very detailed to identify any victims that is on ground from air, and it's live recorded for us on ground on the other side.
Right. How long have you been doing? How long have you been involved in this, Lieutenant Senthil? How long have you been using drones for emergencies and rescues?
Emergency rescue drones in Malaysia is still new, and apparently only Malaysia Civil Defence Force has this right now. And we have been using it since mid last year, 2019, somewhere in October, in June, July, like that.
Okay. Yeah. And in terms of the local civil aviation authority, they're working very closely with you?
Yeah, very true. Basically, since the drone usage for rescue mission is still new in Malaysia, I think the civil aviation authorities of Malaysia, CHAAM, they are still drafting the guidelines for flying emergency drones during any disasters or any emergency, and they are very much closely in touch with us in drafting the new guideline for us to use, not only for us, for other agencies like the Maritime and also Fire and Rescue Department and Police and Armed Forces. So we are still, I think CHAAM is still under the original construction of the new SOP for drone flying for emergency purposes.
Okay, yes. I understand that the issue, the pressing issue would be actually flying over people and over buildings. And do you have any thoughts on how to overcome those regulations or concerns?
Exactly. The common, what you call the general guideline for drone flying is as such that you cannot be flying above what you call mass crowd area. You cannot be flying above this 400 feet and all that. But that is why we require the CHAAM to actually to have a special SOP for us to fly, despite because sometimes we need mapping for disaster-prone areas. For example, there was a request by another agency for us to draft emergency mapping for Thaipusam in Batu Caves. So Thaipusam, So Thaipusam in Batu Caves involves hundreds of thousands of people. And we require drone flying to actually monitor, to know where is the access, where is an emergency to happen, how do the rescuers from ground to actually to approach. So drone would be the most effective method to do it. But again, the CHAAM, if you follow the CHAAM guideline, we should not be flying above any mass crowd area.
Yes.
So these are the concerns that we have actually brought forward to CHAAM to consider for us to allow us to fly at any point of time that whenever it requires.
Okay. Thank you, Lieutenant Senthil. Now we'll move on to Mr. P.S. Tang. Maybe you'd like to share your thoughts about how the scene is in Singapore.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, I would like to share some of the drones applications, especially for surveillance, humanitarian, and also for logistic and industry.
Okay. Because we're having, sorry to interrupt you, because we're having two sessions, So for the logistics and transportation, we'll leave
We
it
do
for
it
the
after.
next. Yes. So
Okay.
focus more on the emergency and humanitarian efforts first.
Okay. I think for I think the Civil Defence Force in Singapore and our Ministry of Home Affairs are beginning to use drone to help them to tackle civil defence issues, including actually our COVID-19 surveillance as well. Yeah, because we have a very big number of what we call the COVID-19 in the foreign worker or the migrant worker community, and they are all staying in all these dormitories. So actually, the police and the health department are making use of our drones to actually help to monitor and to enforce the safe distancing and quarantine in some of our dormitories and industrial area. And they are even going towards using the beyond visual line of sight, so that they can basically have one or multiple drone be able to look after a very large area to basically enforce the safe distancing, and they want it to be BB loss so that they can have multiple drones flying concurrently, in a fairly large area.
So that's like
that will be the challenge.
That would be a swarm drones, right?
I wouldn't say it's a swarm. It's still individual drone controlled by potentially one pilot to more than one drones. Let's say one pilot can remotely manage 3 to 4 drones that's flying beyond visual line of sight for their surveillance purposes and to enforcement, as I said, of the quarantine and also the safe distancing in industrial area.
All right.
That is the new initiative that I think Singapore is pushing to not just enable drone use, but they also want to enable beyond visual line of sight. And I think because of that, one of the challenge that we are trying to overcome is to use our private LTE communication to allow the control and command center to control drones. They are a few kilometers away, and allow the drone to fly in a radius of around 3 to 5 kilometers area, so that it be more effective, more cost can be controlled,
Right.
and make it more economically viable.
Okay. So right now that means we're looking at Singapore actually being more aggressive because of the COVID-19 pandemic, right?
Yes, exactly. And out of the 28,000 reported case, around 25,000, 23 to 25,000 are the migrant worker, which are really confined in a lot of the dormitory area, and also in a lot of our cluster are in specific industry sectors or industry factory by itself. So I think that's why they are well-defined area that the drones can provide the additional monitoring, management and control of safe distancing and quarantine in those areas.
Do you already have areas where you can basically have a drone flying zones, or not yet? Are there specific zones?
I think Singapore, we have a few sandbox area. We call it sandbox. Basically, those are the area that you can fly drones, pre-approved by the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore. And you can even, in this sandbox area, try out what we call the beyond visual line of sight. The two that we are involved in is one at the Marina South, we call it the pier area. Actually a bit on the logistic application for that area.
Yes.
And then the second area is actually in One North, we call it the drone zone, where we are trying to have BB loss drone flight and demonstration for logistic and also for surveillance, security surveillance in the One North area. For people who don't know where One North is, where the Fusionopolis, the Mediapolis, the Science Park, that's where they wanted to allow some of these new tech autonomous robotic to be controlled for beyond visual line of sight trial. So it's a dense urban beyond visual line of sight test bed or sandbox in Singapore.
Okay. All right, and thank you, Mr. Piestang. Right now, then we'll go to Dr. Alexei. Would you like to share your thoughts based on your experience in Russia?
Oh, thank you very much. My name is Alexei Danilin. I welcome the participants of the conference and thanks its organizer for invitation to participate in this work. It's now quite cold in Moscow. It's only +7 degrees. It's 9:30 in the morning. So today I represent the company Radar MMS. This is one of the largest private high-tech companies in Russia. One of the areas of development of which is unmanned aviation. The main customer of the company is the state, but the companies look for opportunities to expand its sales market by developing exports. One of the most promising geographical areas for the export development is Southeast Asia. So our UAVs are helicopter type UAVs. The main advantage of which is the minimum requirements to the takeoff and landing area. Today, probably, dear Hanis, probably you can turn on the video, which I have, the link I sent you, because we would like to show you the drone, which is already used by the Ministry of Emergency Situation in Russia in context of the coronavirus pandemic to identify citizens who violate the self-isolation regime and warn them about the administrative and criminal liability. Could you please turn on the video?
Let me try. Hold on.
Okay.
Can you see this?
Yes,
Okay.
but without sound.
Hold on. Let me see. It's already max. Okay.
It was made about 1 month ago, so the trees are not green.
Okay.
Now we have a green trees, but quite cold. So this is a drone. Unfortunately, no sound.
Oh, I hear it on my side though.
You can hear. Very good. So this is a drone which is now company delivered to the Ministry of Emergency Situation, and it's used. This is a resort area near St. Petersburg in Baltic Sea. So the drone is identify the people who are not it is good you can see it. So that it is a pilot's controlling system. So this is a way how it's identified, and it's a loudspeaker who told them, go back, keep isolation.
Don't be stubborn.
Yes, yeah.
All right.
So if it's interesting, I will briefly tell the main parameters of the system. So the maximum takeoff weight of the drone is 35-45 kilograms. Maximum payload weight is from 6 to 10 kilograms. Maximum flight altitude in meters is 1,500 to 1,000 meters. And maximum flight endurance is 2 hours. Operation range, it's, well, it depends on, okay, I would like to say we declare 2 hours of flying and up to 30 kilometers. So we can use it for different purposes. So the payload can contain imaging infrared camera, HD camera, gas analyzer, digital camera, methane laser detector, quantum mechanical magnetic anomaly detector with 4 cameras, and loudspeaker. Can you hear me? Okay?
Very well.
Okay, very good. So information and command radio operates at the bands of 2300, 2020 to 2345 megahertz and used for high-speed data transmission. The command radio line operates in the range of 902 and 928 megahertz. It used to control the UIV and the receive telematic and navigation information. The duration of the flight depends on the ratio of the payload used and the mass of the fuel field. At the moment, we declare 2 hours. We work in other modification for the characteristic, but currently they are not available for commercial use. The video image can be transferred from UAV to ground control panel in the real-time basis. The radius of the receiving HD video is 30 kilometers from the ground control station. So unmanned aircraft and currently modification use a battery. So there is a main characteristic, but if you're interested and you interested in details, you can contact me. I will send you more information about different UAV system, but this one is very helpful in current situation for emergency purposes. So thank you very much for your attention.
No problem. Shall we maybe, do you have questions from the participants? Would you like to share your thoughts? Please put in your name in the chat group and then you can ask your question so we can have it in order.
Okay.
Okay, that's PS Tang's question.
So we are ready to deliver this system, the whole system, and also organize the training of personnel for managing them, if someone is interested.
Any other questions?
So when I can see them, if the questions are?
It's in the chat group. You go to the menu where you had your control of the camera and your mic. There is a little bubble there.
Oh no, on the left?
In the center. In the center.
Ah, in the center.
Yes.
Press
on your screen. You should get the menu come up. But there's only one question so far. We've got a quiet crowd. Okay, I'll ask the questions.
I cannot find, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe I will ask the question because I think Alexio mentioned that you can do the video streaming back up to 30 kilometers away.
Yes.
So I need to try to understand. Do you have a special RF communication channel? What RF spectrum? You need any special spectrum so that whether we can use it in other countries?
Yes, it's a good question. We should check if it's possible to use this standard, because this standard is different in the different countries. So we need to check if it's possible to use it in Malaysia. But I would like to say, if we are speaking about video control, receive telematic navigation, it's from 902 to 928 megahertz.
Okay,
it's,
is that
operation frequencies?
Okay, I think that one is part of the ISM band for IoT. Yeah.
Maybe. Okay, you can send me. You can take my email and send me a list of questions, and I will organize your contact with our engineers. Okay, they will give you the whole detailed information.
Okay.
Okay, I will type out Dr. Alex's email address in the chat group. So if you've got questions for him, you may address
Please,
it to him directly.
Hanis, please give my email address.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Welcome. Are there any other questions? What about frameworks and legalities and all that? How is it done in Russia?
Frameworks, yes, okay, it is very important, especially in region of Siberia. Yes, we use our drones also there, and also it's also the same customer. It's a Ministry of Emergency, Russian Ministry of Emergency.
Okay.
Yes, and okay, if you send me the question, I will send you information, detailed information, and also sometimes we have a video as examples of how we use a certain type of drones for the certain purposes.
All right, thank you, Dr. Alexei. We've got a question for Mr. P.S. Tang from Scott. How does anyone apply to use the sandbox in Singapore? Is it open to foreign companies as well?
The answer is yes. It's open to even foreign company, but normally the official channel to use this is to apply through either the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore, or in the case for the sandbox in the Marina South Pier, the one is a maritime sandbox. That one you could also apply through our what you call that the Maritime Port Authority of Singapore. That is for that sandbox. The sandbox in One North, or the Science Park area, that sandbox is run by, I believe, JTC, the Jurong Town Corporation. They are the one that built industrial park in Singapore. So those are the 2 or the 3 separate government agencies you can apply to use the sandbox for trial and to demo. Alternatively, I was about to just put down my email because we are involved in some of these sandboxes. Write to me and see whether we can help.
Okay, yes, you may write your email address in the chat group.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Feng. Thank you so much for the information.
Okay, do you have any other questions while we have 3 of this gentleman here with us? Maybe I'm just gonna bring Mr. Chitranch. You're from India. Can you hear me, Mr. Chitranch? He's our second panelist actually. So maybe we can share some insights from India.
Hello, yeah, am I audible?
How are you? Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. How is everyone doing?
All in different time zones, all doing pretty okay.
Oh, great. Yeah, I think I joined a little earlier. I just wanted to, do not miss on anything. So, yeah, I've been following the conversation and I find it pretty interesting. I mean, all the, specifications that were given by Dr. Alexei and, whatever work he's doing, I really appreciate it. And I think, I mean, it's really novel and good job over there. As of now, I think my field of application is a little different, though. And I just wanted to know, I mean, how much time or how easy is it to, convey the message from, from a technical point of view to the people who only understand the application, but not the, the complete specifications and the, applicability. So they view it at any product as a solution, just a solution, and not anything else. So how would you, ask, tell us as entrepreneurs or starters to reach out to them and tell them on how exactly we want to provide them a solution with and what exactly we can do.
Are you addressing it to a specific person or?
No. I mean, it's a question open for all. If anyone can help us out, that would be great.
Okay. So, from my understanding, the drone industry in India has been actually around for more than 5 years.
Yes.
Yes, and you're more tech based. You're saying that you're more app based. Is it for more drone apps rather than hardware? Is that right?
Yeah. We are more into hardware solutions, designing open platform and scalable models for customized usage. My question more is, I mean, from a technical point of view, we understand. I mean, let's say if we are giving a solution from business to business, it's easier for us to talk with the technical party from our end to there and convey the message to deliver a product very well.
Mm.
But we are thinking after of a time after the lockdown, post lockdown period, where drone industry might actually take a huge leap, right? How do we get the people who are not so technically into the drone industry onto the platform, so that they have an ease to use it, even without knowing how exactly the drone is working, what is it doing, but it becomes a little easy for them to use in their day-to-day life, just how we use our phones or laptops or something like that.
Okay, so it's more about the education process. We're facing the same thing here in Malaysia. I don't know how it is like in Singapore. Maybe later, PS Tang, you may want to share with us your insights. But in Malaysia, well, I'm from the events industry, and we were studying the market before we had our first conference last year. So we understood that in Asia, India and China, Taiwan, they were basically leading the way in terms of technical knowledge, and for Malaysians to adopt it, it's still a very new thing for everybody. Even though we had our second event this year, a lot of people were still unaware of its capabilities, and they're still very much caught up in its use for photography and videography. So we are trying to break that mold by having more events such as this, more discussions, and I think when it's done online, we can actually reach out to more people rather than be limited to just our market. So in a way, being under quarantine is a good thing for now, but addressing your issue post quarantine, how do we do this? So I would suggest actually to have more open discussions and not be so much driven on the technicalities. And I noticed that a lot of drone companies, regardless from whichever country you come from, you are very much focused on the technical aspects on things when you sell. And people like me, I'm not a very techie person. It is very hard to understand. So we're trying to break that down. We're trying to be the middle person where we we connect the technical people to the layman. So hopefully we'll just have more discussions such as these. Any other suggestions for those who are new to the industry? Maybe you can tell us how you got to know about drones.
Is it directed to me?
Anybody? How people who are users to drones rather than sellers of drones? How do you get to know about the industry?
All right. In my college, I was in mechatronics. So I'm a robotics engineer, and drone was something I've always been fascinated by. So I just thought, I mean, it would be a cool thing to try out, and one thing led to another. I got a few government opportunities, and internships to develop a drone for the Indian defense systems. And as a team, we developed quite a few systems. Then we also, entered the agriculture industry for drone irrigation and coconut and fertilization and sterilization. So it's just, I mean, one thing led to another. I guess I've been lucky. I just started working on it, and I just took out all the opportunities that I got.
Yeah.
And I'm here where I am.
Cool. So I guess another point would be that maybe drone companies or drone startups, they can connect with their chambers of commerce, their local business associations, just have more sharing sessions with them, because without people knowing that you guys are around, they won't actually specifically Google drone solutions. They're just looking for technology solutions as a whole. Well, that's just my thoughts. Anybody else want to share before we have a little 5-minute break before the next session?
Excuse me. In
Yes.
Russia, each year we have international exhibition, maximise. It's one of the biggest exhibitions of aviations, and there is special section which is dedicated to the drones. That helps a lot, but we need more information to to make it more public in using internet or other possibilities.
Yes. We've got another question here for Lieutenant Senthil. What is the approved RF spectrum in Malaysia?
Sorry?
What is the approved RF spectrum in Malaysia?
It's a good question. I would like to, maybe someone will answer.
Yes, that's for Lieutenant Senthil actually.
Yep. Hello. But I'm not too sure of this because we are not involved in the technicality of building a drone. We are the users. So I have to go to find out on this. I have no answer. I don't have answer right now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
PS Tang here. Maybe I try to answer that question.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I do work with some of the drone players in Malaysia. Currently, most of the drone use, of course, if it's a DJI or any of the commercial drone that you're buying, they're all using Wi-Fi frequency band, which is 2.4 gigahertz or 5.8 gigahertz. Yeah, because this is what they call the ISM or the free to use frequency band. So most of the drone commercially are using that band. But of course, using the Wi-Fi frequency band has its limitation. One is the range, how far you can fly and control your drone on a line of sight basis. And secondly, is subject to interference. Because when your drone is flying across certain household or certain factory that are also using Wi-Fi, so their routers and their device could potentially interfere with the same frequency spectrum they are using to control the drone. Yeah, so that is number one. Most drones today are using Wi-Fi. The second type of drone people are beginning to look at is to use public network, which is the public LTE network. So you can now use the Cellcom, Maxis, or DG, their 4G network. And if your drone has some of their one of their communication module and SIM card, then you can use a public network to try to control your drone. The one weakness is using public network, then the latency is a bit inconsistent. Yeah? So sometimes it could be 3-4 seconds before your video stream come back, so you cannot control it. Yeah? And also public network is subject to congestion and also is subject to low cybersecurity. Yeah? So people are very concerned about using public network. For us, we are using private network. So in Singapore, and I have spoken to MCMC, our regulator in Malaysia, on using the same frequency spectrum, which is 1.79 to 1.8. MCMC has verbally allowed us to do proof of concept or trial of using that spectrum for drone flight in Malaysia. Yeah, but because of the COVID-19, nothing happened for the last few months. So after our drone event, I think that was in February, March. So there has some discussion, but nothing can happen after that. Yeah. So I think we need to wait for we call it the COVID-19 to open up, and then if there is any drone player in Malaysia, either they continue to use Wi-Fi band, or they can use a public network, or if they want to use a private network, let's say you want to fly in a plantation, or like for civil defense when there's a forest fire, a public network is not there also. Yeah, so then we can bring our private network equipment on demand, put it up within 1 hour or minutes, and then you can use that to control your drone flight within 5 to 10 kilometer radius of a fly zone. Yeah. So that is so to answer the question is, they don't have any pre-approved frequency spectrum, but verbally they have allowed us to trial 1.79, 1.8 gigahertz, which is good for private LTE, which we have all the necessary equipment in Singapore that we are using, and we want to try out with partner in Malaysia, since MCMC has allowed verbally for trial.
Okay. I've got one last question before we go for our break. This is from Dell. So, in view of the usage of private or public network in operating the drone flight, hence during huge disasters whereby the telecommunication or network failure happens, how can the drone benefit during the disaster? Or how can it be used, I should say?
Yeah, I think I can mention like just now, using a private portable network. So when there's a disaster, public network is down. Let's say after a tsunami or after a big typhoon, most public network infrastructure are down. So most disaster recovery will then bring in their own private communication equipment, of which the private LTE network is available at the back of a truck or even backpack. So you actually bring it up, power it up, and then you can use that network to control your drones, as I mentioned, over a 5-kilometer radius fly zone, or any drones the disaster recovery people can bring. They can still use Wi-Fi, to fly that drone to cover the disaster recovery area. So you can use Wi-Fi or a private dedicated network, but depending on the health of the public network, because big disaster like tsunami, the public network will also be wiped out.
Yeah.
Just to add on to Dell's question, the drone that we are using for Civil Defence Force in Malaysia, we rely very much into satellite communication because it's a custom-made drone. So we fly using satellite communication. And at any point of time so far, at any disaster trial that we have tried so far during a flood and also for forest fire, satellite communication, we have between 18 to 22 satellites that communicates with our ground station, and we can still fly the what you call drone in a very stable flying mode. And we don't depend on local or private telecommunication to fly our drones for as far as Civil Defence Force drone is concerned.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. We've got no questions coming in. Okay, so but PS Tang has answered. So there was a question which asked, how do you deconflict your own private network with public network? Is there an interference? So Mr. PS Tang has replied that the different frequency bands, it is a different frequency band, so it's totally exclusive to the RF network. I hope that answers your question. We're going to have a 5-minute break and we'll see you back here at 2:50. So I'm going to stop the recording and resume again.
Excuse me, can I ask one more question? The last question to Mr. Tang. Sorry. My name is Lai, SP Lai, from economise. Yeah. Mr. Tang, just want to mention that the private network, you can go up to 1.79 or 1.78 gigahertz, even in Singapore and Malaysia. Let's say in Singapore, because Singapore, I know that there are a lot of high-rise buildings. So, do you have any issue in terms of the line of sight? So the conduction will be interfered also with your, the drone. To your ground control stations.
Right. Let me explain. LTE 4G is actually a non-line of sight RF technology. So it can actually reflect off different building, even reflect off water, so that it is a multi-path, what we call a multi-path non-line of sight RF technology. So it doesn't need to be only line of sight. But of course, when it actually reflects off buildings and other structure to connect to your drone, you do lose some signal strength. Yeah, so that's why most of the 4G network, your mobile phone network, their average radius in an urban environment like KL, they will deploy every base station maybe every 500 meters apart. But if they're deployed in a rural environment where you have less blockage, then the radius can be 3-5 kilometers. And of course, for drone flight in the sky, we plan to use probably 8 to 10 kilometer radius because you do have a line of sight in a rural environment. But if you are flying your drone in KL, or in our case in One North, which is in dense urban Singapore, then our radius plan is only around 300-400 meters away. So we have to factor in some blockages, and the RF signal need to be reflected off other buildings. in order to reach your drone.
I see. But you are referring to private network, right? If you are talking about LTE.
Yeah, it's you.
Yeah, public network, sorry.
No. Yeah, LTE is the technology we are using. When I call it private network, because we are using a dedicated private frequency spectrum that is different from the public telco. That's why we call it private LTE. Actually, it's the same RF technology, but deployed on a dedicated frequency spectrum, and that's why we call it private LTE.
Okay. So they do give you some impact in terms of the interference. Let's say it has been blocked by other mountain or even blocked by the high-rise building.
Yes. It's not interference. I'll call attenuation of your RF signal. Yeah, because you are the only person that using that RF frequency. No one else is using. So it's more like obstruction and attenuation of your signal that you need to plan in when you design your network and your fly zone. Yeah.
Okay.